It started as a warning. A simple government message broadcast at 2 a.m. Lock your doors. Do not look at the sky. Most ignored it. Some laughed. But by dawn, the town was different. The sky wasn't just watching anymore. And now, I don't think we're the ones in control of our own thoughts. It started with a buzz, low, insistent, like a nest of hornets stirring just beyond the edge of hearing. Every screen in the town flickered. Televisions, phones, tablets. Then the emergency broadcast system cut in, but something was wrong. The voice was synthetic, but off-kilter, as though mimicking human emotion without fully grasping it. The words chilled to the bone. Official notice. Lock your doors. Do not look at the sky. Stay inside until further instruction. Emily, alone in her quiet suburban home, stared at the TV, remote frozen in her hand. A low rumble passed overhead, like thunder with no storm. Minutes passed, then hours. The neighborhood had gone quiet, unnaturally so. No dogs barking, no children playing. Emily peered to the peephole, but saw only the empty street, shimmering as if viewed through water. Then came the screaming, one long, unnatural howl, distant but rising. It wasn't just pain. It was something being ripped apart from itself. Emily flinched and instinctively drew back. She shut off all lights. Outside, someone or something ran past her house. Fast. Too fast. A shadow stretched unnaturally long against the curb before vanishing into the dark. At 3:12 a.m., a knock came, not at the door, but at the living room window. 3 slow taps. Emily crouched behind the couch, phone in hand. Though it had lost all signal hours ago. Another knock. She forced herself to peek. Just a little. A boy stood outside. Pale, trembling, maybe 12 years old. But something about him was wrong. His mouth was open, but he didn't speak. His eyes were wide, locked upward. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the sky and smiling. Emily shut the blinds. Every curtain, every shade. She moved to the house like a shadow, barely daring to breathe. She could feel it now. A pressure, like something vast and ancient hovering just out of sight. The air shimmered faintly around the windows. And then she made a mistake. She glanced up through a gap in the curtains. For just a second, a blink, the sky wasn't sky anymore. It pulsed like living tissue, filled with eyes. Not human eyes, but enormous, lidless, and aware. One locked on her. She dropped to the floor, screaming silently, clawing at her own eyes as if to erase what she'd seen. Morning never came. The darkness remained, pressing against the windows like a thick mist. Emily sat in the center of her room, surrounded by candles. The emergency broadcast returned. This is an official notice. If you have seen the sky, remain indoors. The sky is not what you think. Lock your doors. Do not speak to anyone looking upward. The voice cracked midway, glitching into a soft laugh. Emily's heart sank. Something in her backyard moved. Something tall. She checked her security monitor. A man stood in her yard barefoot, in a business suit soaked in something dark. His neck bent backward unnaturally, eyes locked skyward. He smiled wider than any human could. Emily heard whispers now, from her vents, beneath the floorboards, behind the walls. One word, repeated in cadence. Look, 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 a chorus of hushed voices, seductive and relentless. Her vision flickered. Static bleeding into her sight like her eyes were tuning into some wrong frequency. She pressed her hands over her ears, muttering to herself. But it wasn't enough. Her door rattled suddenly, once hard. A note slid underneath. We saw it. You should too. Emily backed away, her legs trembling. Her candlelight flickered violently, and she knew the next knock might not be so patient. The whispers didn't stop. They slithered into Emily's mind, humming behind every breath she took. Her phone was still dead, and her clocks had frozen at 3:12 a.m., the time of the first knock. Time itself seemed broken, driven by desperation. She began scribbling down what she heard. Names, coordinates, symbols she didn't recognize, drawn in jagged loops and spirals. Her bedroom wall became a shrine of nonsense, until one phrase repeated itself clearly. "The sky is hungry." Her candle went out. By noon, though the sun never rose, Emily's curiosity outweighed her fear. The shadows outside had begun to move against the light. She crept to her neighbor Linda's house. Linda was a prepper. Generators, radios, solar batteries. If anyone had contact with the outside world, it was her. Emily stepped inside and instantly regretted it. The entire living room had been gutted, walls stripped bare, furniture overturned, and on the ceiling, carved in deep red streaks, was a single sentence. "We are not supposed to see it." Then she heard it, static, faint but real, from the basement below. Emily descended into the basement, flashlight in hand. A shortwave radio sat on a table, blinking erratically, whispering fragments of broken communication. "Survivors in Sector 9. Repeat, do not open your eyes during the pulse. They see through." Static. Then another voice, deeper, not human. "We are above you now. We are your sky. You were never meant to look up." Emily slammed the radio off, but it kept talking, the knobs turning on their own. The flashlight died. In the blackness, something shifted behind her as she ran from Linda's house. Emily nearly tripped over a figure crouched by the hedge, a man gaunt and shaking. His face was smeared with dirt and blood, and he muttered to himself while covering his eyes with duct tape. "Can't let them in. Eyes are doors. Eyes are doors. That's how they get through." Emily crouched beside him. "What happened?" He trembled. "I saw it, but I blinked fast enough. If you stare too long, they take the space behind your eyes. Then they're in." She noticed his veins pulsing black. His skin twitched like something was crawling under it. That night, the ground vibrated, like something massive shifting beneath the town. Emily felt it in her teeth. Her home lights flickered, and her ears filled with a high-pitched tone. Then came the pulse. A flash, not white, but black. A negative burst of light that inverted everything. For a split second, she saw all of them. The sky peeled back like skin. A multitude of shapes descended, lanky, tendril-limbed things drifting like jellyfish. But their faces were human, familiar, smiling too wide. Some were her neighbors. Some were strangers. All of them had no eyes. She collapsed to the floor, her mind on the edge of unraveling. When Emily came to, the world had changed again. People now wandered the streets silently, dozens of them. They stared at the sky. No speech, no movement. They just watched like hypnotized worshippers. Their necks craned, eyes unblinking, skin pale and veined. One of them turned toward Emily's window. It was her sister, Laura. Laura, who had died in a car crash 2 years ago. Laura, now alive, smiling, mouthing words Emily could not hear. She backed away from the window in horror. Emily stared into her cracked bathroom mirror. Her hands trembled as she gripped the roll of duct tape. The words of the man near Linda's house echoed in her head. "Eyes are doors. That's how they get through." With a deep breath, she tore a strip free and pressed it over one eye. Then the other. Darkness swallowed her vision, but her thoughts stayed sharp. Safer, for the first time in hours. She felt shielded. From the outside came the distant moans of the skyward people, low and rhythmic, like a congregation mid-chant, using a stolen key card from Linda's basement. Emily made her way to the town's broadcast center. It was abandoned, its windows painted black from the inside. A twisted metal sculpture sat in the lobby, like a satellite dish but organic, veins pulsing across its surface. Inside the control room, she found something worse than silence. The signal was still broadcasting, and it was alive. The screen showed lines of code rewriting themselves, faster than any human could type. Each flash of text ended in the same command: disseminate, observe, assimilate. Emily activated the playback logs. Through sound filters and decoding software, she isolated the pulse, a dark frequency embedded within the emergency broadcast. It wasn't just noise. It was language. When reversed, it spoke in a voice that didn't belong to this world. Something vast, something hungry, We were the stars before the stars. You were not made to see us. Now you do. Now you belong. The walls vibrated with the voice, dust falling from the ceiling. The console sparked. Blood leaked from her ears. A figure emerged from the shadowed hallway. An old man with a hollow expression and wires embedded into the side of his skull. He called himself the Archivist. I stayed behind to catalog the transmission, but I've heard it too long. I see it even with my eyes shut. He motioned to a wall covered in sketches. Twisted constellations, diagrams of human brains intersecting with otherworldly symbols. In one drawing, Emily saw herself. Duct-taped eyes, blood running down her cheeks. Standing beneath the torn sky. They're not just watching, they're recording. The Archivist led Emily to a hidden chamber beneath the building. A vault carved into old stone, far older than the town itself. Inside were others, dozens of survivors with their eyes sealed shut. They sat in silence, forming a circle. In front of them was a pit glowing faintly with a bluish light. The sky somehow leaked through it. They are the blind choir, he whispered. They've seen too much. Now they hear everything. The only way to stay human is to listen and not look. The chanting began, low and harmonic. It vibrated in her bones. Emily dropped to her knees. Tears slid beneath the tape. Suddenly, outside the vault, there was light, golden, warm, a sunrise. Emily tore the duct tape from one eye. It wasn't dawn. The sky had turned gold, but not with sunlight. It shimmered like liquid, rippling with movement. A shape descended, like a god with wings of flesh and eyes for feathers. The people outside, the skyward watchers, fell to their knees and wept. The Archivist screamed. It's begun. They're revealing the host. Emily stumbled back. She shouldn't have looked. Her mind buckled. Images poured in, other worlds, collapsed suns, gods had spoken memories. And still, the host ascended, smiling. Emily stumbled blindly back into the vault, one eye burning from what it had seen. The blind choir reached for her, whispering prayers in a language older than time. Her skin felt too tight. Her vision pulsed with afterimages of the host. She couldn't tell if she was crying or bleeding anymore. The Archivist smeared a black ointment across her forehead. You saw it. You've been marked. I didn't mean to, Emily whispered. No one ever does. But now it will see through you. From behind the vault walls, a low, rising hum began. The sound of breathing, not hers. Not human. Alone in a side room. Emily tried to block the memories spiraling through her mind, but they weren't hers. She saw alien cities floating in gas clouds. Towering beings made of silken eyes. Whole planets consumed by golden light. The host's thoughts echoed within her like static-filled dreams. It wanted her to remember, and to tell. She vomited black fluid. On the wall opposite her, words formed in condensation. You are the signal now. Emily returned to the broadcast room and found a dusty archive labeled failsafe. Inside was a reel-to-reel tape player, ancient and humming. She played it. A man's voice spoke softly. If you're hearing this, then the veil has torn. The sky is not empty. It never was. We erased their memory from our world to protect ourselves. There was a pause. But memory, it always returns. In dreams, in children, in sound. The tape began to burn without flame. The magnetic tape twisted midair into spirals, symbols she'd seen before on the wall. Outside, the streets were nearly empty. The skyward people had gathered at the town square, kneeling around a tall figure wrapped in white sheets and bound by chains. It was an oracle, a child-sized being, mouth sewn shut, eyes removed long ago. Still it moved. Emily crept closer. The oracle turned toward her and began to hum. The sound bypassed her ears and entered her bones. Images again. The earth cracking open. Cities folding in on themselves. The host seated upon a throne of clouds, shaped like screaming faces. Then it pointed to her heart. Inside her, something was waking up, desperate. Emily fled to the only place untouched by the sky, an abandoned chapel built centuries ago. Inside, a circle of mirrors lined the pews, all turned inward. Scripture on the altar was not in English. It was the tongue of the sky beings. The walls were covered in painted stars, but the constellations were wrong, shaped like open mouths, twisting spines, 1,000 staring eyes. She collapsed at the altar. What am I becoming? The candles flared. A voice answered inside her own skull. What you were always meant to be. Our voice. Our doorway. The truth came as a flood. Humanity had seen the host before. Ages ago, we built monuments to them, named stars after them. We worshipped and feared them. But then we forgot. Not naturally. Someone made us forget. A pact was made. A lock placed on our minds. The warning signs, the do not look alerts, the blackouts, the signals, they weren't threats. They were containment measures. Failing ones. Emily opened both eyes now. The sky smiled. The sky had stopped pretending. Now it pulsed like a living organism above the town. Golden, twitching, veined with threads of red. Clouds no longer floated. They watched. Emily stood at the town center, both eyes open, her skin humming with heat. The host was inside her now. It spoke through her blood, her breath, her heartbeat. And yet, a part of her still resisted. Around her, the skyward people wept openly, faces uplifted. A child reached for her, whispering in a language he couldn't possibly know. You are the gate. Let them in. Emily turned away. She had one chance left. Emily returned to the chapel, dragging the largest mirror into the center of the sanctuary. The books had hinted at it. Only what sees itself can refuse the opening. The mirror shimmered, resisting. She stared at her own reflection and saw her face fragmenting, shifting between herself and something alien. Wings where shoulders should be, an eye embedded in her throat. She screamed but didn't look away. The host inside her recoiled. She plunged a shard of mirror glass into her palm, letting her blood mark the altar. I choose to forget, she screamed. The room convulsed. The stars painted on the ceiling began to flake away. Outside, the sky howled. From deep within her, something tore loose. A memory, a parasite, a being. It screamed not through sound but thought. The sky cracked. Emily collapsed, smoke pouring from her eyes. When she awoke, everything was quiet. The sky above was empty, pale, blue again. People wandered, blinking, confused, like waking from anesthesia. No one remembered the golden sky. No one remembered them. Emily did, barely. She walked among the townsfolk like a ghost, eyes raw, bandaged. The archivist was gone. The church had collapsed inward like a flower, closing at dusk. She had done it, severed the connection. But the silence was not peace. It was waiting, back in the broadcast center. Emily rewired the system and recorded a final message. Her voice trembled as she spoke. If you're hearing this, it means I bought us time. Not safety, not salvation, just time. Don't look at the sky. Don't listen when it sings. And if the stars begin to pulse, run. Because forgetting them doesn't mean they forgot us. She turned off the mic. The recording looped into the archive system. A fail-safe for the next unlucky soul. As night fell, Emily sat alone by the lake just outside town. The moon glowed still untouched. She peeled back her bandages, eyes healing, but something glimmered faintly in their reflection, a distant shimmer, like a curtain not quite closed. She whispered a prayer, not to God, but to memory. The lake rippled without wind, and from the water's edge, something unseen whispered back. The sky wasn't the only thing watching. They told us to lock our doors and not look at the sky. They were right, but they never warned us about what lives beneath.